What's your drink of choice when you're in a business meeting at dinner?
I'm a vodka guy.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
On the rocks.
I love it. So what was that like being a part of the founding team and then that transition now to being CEO?
At the time, a $200 billion business where sales reps are walking in the back door of these restaurants, slapping the backs of the restaurant owner and taking orders on pen and paper. And it was 4 guys in a garage back in 2011. If we just build a little bit of software for this vertical, and we ought to be able to build stuff more to kind of help drag them into the 21st century.
That kind of old Silicon Valley dream of starting in a garage and you saw a problem and you figuring a way to attack it.
It's a really tough business. Distribution is very thin margin. Operator restaurants are very, very tough. They go out of business at a super high rate.
How do you try to simplify the product and really give the data in a clean way for them to use that and be available to really make smart decisions?
Like anybody can build software. The sanctity that we treat data with, it's one of our core values. It's that this is your data that we want to make better and we want to make you more powerful because of it.
What do you think has been one of the most successful things for you or successful for the company to really develop those relationships, being a relationship first type of leader?
You just can't build that relationship over the phone. The willingness to put in that effort, I think, is what got us some trust and acceptance. We don't just send emails. That stuff gets done in person.
Being on the road, being in FaceTime is something different, whether it's trade shows or doing calls like this virtually is great. You can build a relationship. It's something about being in person.
I think it's really hard to engage in a partnership or do something really strategic unless you've sat down at dinner together. And that's at a restaurant, ironically. And it's why the business is so important,
Hey y'all, how we doing? We are back again for another episode of Hospitable. And today I am joined by the CEO of Meal Ticket, Wink Jones. Wink was a part of the founding team at Meal Ticket back in 2011, and he was inspired by a strategic vision to bring modern technology to an underserved industry. And as all you know, listening to this podcast, we're all about how to make hospitality more human through technology. It's something that I know Wink is passionate about. So Wink, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be here.
Yeah, so you started as part of the founding team. 2011 doesn't seem that long ago, but it's been a little bit. So what was that like being a part of the founding team and then that transition now to being CEO? And I'm sure that there's been a lot of lessons along the way. So what was that brief journey looking like for you?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. It's been quite a journey. I mean, we were literally 4 guys in a garage back in 2011. I was introduced to our current CTO and my partner, Brian Conrath, by a mutual friend. And I was kind of between things, and he was, we were not food service guys, and he was describing the food service business and specifically the activities of distributor sales reps and how, there's at the time a $200 billion business where sales reps are walking in the back door of these restaurants, slapping the backs of the restaurant owner and taking orders on pen and paper. And it was, 2011 feels like a long time ago, but there were Apple phones at that time and smartphones, and we just couldn't believe that so many people were going to market that way. And so we started with the theme or the thesis that, if we just build a little bit of software for this vertical, that we ought to get adoption and we ought to be able to build stuff more to kind of help drag them into the 21st century. So we started with this really basic idea that we would take a distributor's data, mine it, and then tell them who to market to and what to market. We built a little app that basically allowed us to do this kind of deal of the day idea. And our first deal was with a distributor in Oregon, and they had some expiring product. They had tater tots and mini corn dogs and a bunch of old beef patties. And
sounds like a high school lunch.
It was like this terrible product, but they're like, it's going to go bad. We got to sell it. Where should we sell it to? We found in their data who should be buying it. All those restaurants received an email with a notice and a deal. We got crazy click rates, and then they sold out right in 2 hours. And so we're like, okay, we've got something here. And it was just that thesis then writ large for the next 6-7 years, while we kind of looked for places where the things that distributors were doing were very inefficient, and we brought modern technology to them through SaaS, and it was really affordable. And kind of everywhere we turned, we found people that wanted to buy it.
I love it, and it's kind of funny that you bring up that we weren't really industry guys, and you see a lot of times. A lot of hospitality tech comes from people who have gone through it in industry. And I think it's really cool because it kind of your story feels a little bit like that kind of old Silicon Valley dream of starting in a garage and you saw a problem and was figuring a way to attack it. But it's a really cool problem because I think as Meal Ticket has grown on, you know, there's different brands under your umbrella. You've acquired a few companies. Obviously, we've met through our relationship and partnership with MarketMan. So what's that been like as you've been growing? And as you see these different problems and attacking it, how have you gone about growing the business in that way, whether it's building new product or acquiring product? What was that like? Or how have you viewed that from a sense of serving the community and keeping to the core purpose?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the fun and challenging thing about food tech is that I think we're behind the technology curve as an industry in general, and I think we're sort of the late adopters to new technologies. So you know, as we were building the company and the product, every time we'd see something working in another industry, that would kind of give us ideas to bring to this vertical, and so that has worked again along the way as we think about product development. So we built like 3 products under our Meal Ticket umbrella up until 2020. And then we did our first acquisition in 2020 of a company called TrackMax, which sells back office rebate management to distributors. At that time, we brought in a private equity group, PSG, out of Boston. They basically took out our angel and seed investors and kind of recapped the company. So we had this like fresh start now with a new investor group that is very acquisitive, and you know they had done very well by helping companies to grow organically, but then also to help them grow inorganically through M&A. And a year into that deal, we did our second acquisition, which was MarketMan. And the idea there was that, you know, at that time we were working with a very large piece of the U.S. distributor business, and I think if we think about the number of billions of dollars that run through our data as kind of the size of our business, and we had about $50 billion worth of sales data transactions running through our databases, which was somewhere around 20% of the business in total. So it was significant enough to be really interesting as an exposure into that. And no one had really brought inventory management and operator back office to the market sort of at scale. And so MarketMan, we saw an opportunity to take a really nice product and then fit it in with our strategy of, you know, being distributor centric and having these relationships and having visibility to, you know, hundreds of thousands of restaurants to be able to bring that product and bring it to market through those relationships. And so that gave us this like end-to-end view of everybody in the supply chain. And it's, you know, we work with manufacturers and suppliers, we work with distributors, and then through MarketMan, we've got the operator set. And really, you know, all along the way, what we had learned as, again, guys new to the business is that it's a really tough business. Distribution is very thin margin. Operator restaurants are very, very tough. They go out of business at a super high rate. And so we really developed this passion for helping our customers to be healthy and stay in business. And when you look at like what our products tend to do for our customers, it's they save time, they save money, they get smart about how to run their business. A lot of, and it's still true. A lot of restaurants run their business on a spreadsheet at best, and some of them on a piece of paper. A lot of distributors that have been in business for a long time do the same. And we continue to see ways to modernize their businesses and help them do better at what they do best, right? Like, I don't want to replace sales reps, right? I don't want to replace the relationship that a sales rep has with the restaurant. I don't want to like roboticize restaurant cooking because that's not interesting, and that's not why we go to restaurants. But what we do want to do is help them stay in business. We want them to be smarter. We want the closure rate to go down. Like all of those things make our customer base healthier, and it just makes the industry as a whole healthier and more successful.
Yeah, there's two things. One, it's funny that you bring up the distributors, and I used to work when I started my career in working for an all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. My dad was the assistant manager, and I remember going in early and getting the order and literally off of a pen and paper checking off, yep, that's what we ordered, and then taking that and then cross-checking it and writing in the books back in the day, right? And that's a while ago. And so it's crazy to think how that is still common at times. And I love that you bring up the second piece is I love that you bring up the relationship, but we're not trying to take away. And I think that's the fear, right? When we think of all the budget, all the technology, it's taking jobs away. And I know you're a big advocate on relationship first. That's something that, I've seen on your profile, and I've seen you talk about it and doing some research on you. And it's cool that you bring that up, because I think that the technology that we're building in this industry, there's so much opportunity to use technology well.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think there's a lot of technology out there, especially for restaurants and hospitality, that people don't know what to do with. So how do you go about in that process of not taking away those relationships from like the salespeople, et cetera, but creating data that's actually usable? Because sometimes data is a lot. Data can tell a lot of different stories. And a restaurant, for example, has a lot of things to do. You're opening and closing, all these things. So how do you try to simplify the product and really give the data in a clean way for them to use that and be available to really make smart decisions?
It's a great question. The acquisition that we announced this last summer, it's a company called Twice Baked. And these guys had basically built a professional services shop around back office management for restaurants. So their whole business model was, they were a reseller of MarketMan, but they would help resell, and then they would get engaged very closely with the restaurants that they sold to. So they would basically insert themselves into the back office. They, set up, help them run the businesses, get MarketMan spinning and running, and then eventually peel off and kind of send them on their way, or in some cases have longer term engagements to actually run the business for them. And so you talk about like how to use data. That's exactly along the lines of how we've engaged with our customers. So we've done that obviously. On the distributor side, we are very, very hands-on with our distributors, and then we actually work with our distributors to help them monetize their data to the suppliers and manufacturers. So a lot of our distributors will actually take the data that we generate from their own data that we've cleaned up and made kind of digestible, and then they'll take that and they'll go to the manufacturers they buy from and sell them more data to help them find where to buy more stuff from them. So it's or how to sell more stuff to the restaurants. So that becomes this like virtual cycle of we're creating data at every relationship that we have, and the more data that we create, the more work we have to do to cleanse that data, make it digestible, normalize it, map it, dedupe it, etc. But then the more valuable that data becomes back to those constituents that we work with, and that's where I think the real magic is in what we do and where our real moat is. Like anybody can build software, and you see that, right? We have plenty of competitors that are selling inventory management or analytics packages or whatever. But the way that we treat data, the sanctity that we treat data with, it's one of our core values. Is that your data is your data. Like we're not trying to take your data and own it and do anything with it. This is your data that we want to make better, and we want to make you more powerful because of it. And so we have spent a lot of time and effort to make sure that data is A, secure, but B, like valuable and cleansed and useful. And then it takes that extra step of like humans engaging with humans to like make that data work ultimately to make those businesses more healthy.
Yeah, I love that. And, that's something that I think resonates well between our organizations, and something that, attracted us to want to work together. Because, from an Omnibus standpoint, that's what we do is we've created semantic layers to really take that data and make it actionable. Start off with accounting, and we built out and have to hold data services and all the different things that we can do. But I think it's really important that you mentioned is so many companies, data is something that we talk a lot about. And there's data transformation, there's data services, there's data this, data that. But making data easily readable is something really special and something that we still need to really think about, because data does tell a story. They could tell us the right story, but we have to put it in a way to make that story accessible, understandable, and usable. And that's something that's still, I really believe, is behind the curve, because there's just so much data out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. When you look at the relationships you have as you've been out and scaling and growing the business, what do you think has been one of the most successful things for you or successful for the company to really develop those relationships, being a relationship first type of leader? How have you gone out and building these partnerships and building these relationships with customers? What do you think has been the most key to your organization's growth?
That's got to think about that for a second, but it's a great question. We put in, coming from a position of not being a food service guy when we started, we had to put a lot of face time in on the road. And when we got our first big distributor customer, I went and visited, they now have 68 different warehouse locations throughout the country. I think I personally have been to at least 40 of them over a 5-year period, where I went and visited all of them in person, talked to everybody in person. Again, does come back to the relationship standpoint that you just can't build that relationship over the phone. And that was way before Zoom calls happened. So you couldn't even see a face until you got in a car, on a plane, went and visited them. A lot of times they're outside of big cities, so you got to drive a little bit to get to them. But the willingness to put in that effort, I think, is what got us some trust and acceptance within the business. Because it is, when you move up the supply chain into that distributor layer, it's a small and a tight community. And if they don't know you and they don't trust you, it's really hard to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And so putting in that time early really made a lasting impact to where, now I can claim to be a food service guy, 13, 14 years later. And I'm actually trusted in the business, to take care of data and take care of someone's business. And our staff reflects that, right? Our staff has that same cultural attitude, has that willingness to get in the car, get on the phone. We don't just send emails. It's such an easy thing to fall back on, especially now as companies are looking to become more efficient. Less in-person time, less face-to-face, less phone calls. But the reality is, like, that stuff gets done in person.
Yeah.
And so we continue to do that stuff. And I think, again, we talk about what we're doing at a professional services level. It's like there's not a lot of other companies that are trying to scale that are also doing what we're doing with that professional services engagement and with that human-to-human touch and contact.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought up human to human. It's something that's going around a lot. My friend Sean P. Walshoff from, I don't know if you know him, he's from Cali Barbecue Media, Digital Hospitality. He talks about H2H and how, well, technology, and he's a big technology advocate, but when it comes to hospitality, especially restaurants, it's the human to human. You come to a restaurant, you go there for the experience of being around humans. So I love that you bring up H2H. It's something that we use here, and big core purpose of ours is willingness to serve. It's one of our true core ethos. And I love that you bring that up because, being on the road, being in FaceTime is something different, whether it's trade shows or meetings. And I think Zoom and doing calls like this virtually is great. You can build a relationship, but something about being in person, having that human connection and that energy and the buzz and excitement of sitting across from somebody is unmatched. So I love that you brought that up. And
I think it's really hard to engage in a partnership or do something really strategic unless you've sat down at dinner together, and that's at a restaurant, ironically, and that's why the business is so important.
Absolutely. What's your drink of choice when you're in a business meeting at dinner? Are you a wine guy or a beer guy?
I'm a vodka guy.
Okay, there we go. A cocktail guy.
On the rocks.
I love it. I'm more whiskey than vodka for sure. I'm a huge whiskey fan, so I'm the same. But I also, from my time in Italy, love a little bit of wine as a starter and a whiskey as a finisher.
Nice.
Yeah, no, bringing kind of this full circle. It's something that I think is really impactful of building relationships, and that shows from a hospitality tech perspective. I think it's really important, even though we're selling tech solutions, even though we're selling data cleansing and data security and all these things, it still doesn't take away from the fact that we need to build real relationships and help grow together, because that's technology is only as good as the people that are using it, right? And so that's really impactful piece that you just kind of shared there. So really, really appreciate that. Because you've been on the road a lot, going to these 40 manufacturers. What's the smallest town that you've been to, or what was the craziest place that you had to travel to win some business?
Oh man, there's a couple definitely a couple of very small towns in Kentucky that I've been to. I won't say exactly where because I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But I'll tell you, we do also, as part of the meal ticket software, we do a food show, trade show software. So we actually go on site and help run these food shows, which if you've been to a food show, like they're different than other trade shows. They're very specific. And that's why we built software for it, because nobody else had kind of accommodated that. And we have a team of people that travel around to these shows, and we do something like 80 physical shows a year where we have people on site. I know we've had one show, and I wasn't on this one, but it was in upstate New York, and there was no rental cars in that town. So when they landed, they had to rent a U-Haul and drive a U-Haul like 2 hours across the state to go get to the distributor where they were hosting this food show. I think when they got there was no Wi-Fi as well. Like, it was really, really backwards. It was kind of shocking anybody was even hosting a trade show there. But
I mean, it takes all time. Sometimes, that's the beauty. I think too of traveling and going out on the road to be where your customers are is it's those stories, it's those experiences that are so memorable and it creates those bonds, it creates those relationships. And sometimes it's going through a little bit of adversity on the road at a trade show, showing up and things aren't where it's supposed to be, or doing this or doing that usually makes the trade show kind of something special,
It does. Our trade show team is actually, we've been through a lot together, and they're pretty tight now because of that. And those people that I've done the trade shows with tend to form bonds when you go through hardships like that. Because the other thing about it is, like, trade shows are really hard because they just never go perfectly. Something's always going wrong, whether it's, software or something wrong with the show or too many people or whatever. And so you're always scrambling to fix stuff together. And just that like cooperative battle, I think, just generates a lot of bonding.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that. I mean, I've got a few war stories myself. I mean, this year alone, I've taken, I think, I have 2 more flights in December, which will put me in my total of 42 for the year.
Nice.
Across the U.S. and Europe. So got a few, it's been a battle on some of those. And even so, like recording this podcast, there's a couple of podcasts that I recorded, and I forgot to make sure that the batteries were charged. And so we went through a whole recording before I realized that we didn't do anything.
Oh, no way. Oh, man.
Challenges of doing things, and sometimes you just forget little things like batteries, but I love it.
Well, I'll tell you, probably my favorite place that I've traveled now in the last few years has been Israel. So Market Man, I don't know if you knew, was founded in Israel before they moved to the U.S. and opened the market here. But we still have a team in Israel. And up until last October, I had been traveling there about every 6 months. And first time I went, really didn't know what to expect, and got to go spend half a day in Jerusalem and see the old city. It was just like it was so mind blowing. And I've traveled a fair bit, but I didn't expect what I experienced there. It was, for one, the country itself is incredible, clean, and felt very safe. And Jerusalem is a 4,000-year-old city that's like still living and operating, and just to have the opportunity to work with an international team that literally on the other side of the world has been so cool. And obviously, the events of the last year have been for us especially heartbreaking and devastating to see kind of what's happened to the country there. And it's just given me a really cool and really different perspective on everything that's happened there.
Yeah, I think that travel, when you travel and get to experience cultures, it really gives you perspective on things. And also, as you look at and take kind of those experiences into the way that you run a business and the way that you develop product and the way that you create experiences for the end customer in mind, all take into effect, because you can learn so much from getting to travel and getting to experience other cultures and how to really tie that into all the things that you're building. Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What is, as we look at hospitality tech and we look at, we're recording this at the end in Q4, heading into end of year and looking into 2025, what do you think are some of the major trends that we should be paying attention to, or that maybe people aren't paying attention to as it relates to hospitality tech and restaurant tech and food tech going into 2025? And what are maybe some things that you think are really going to surprise some folks as we look at next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. In general, vertical SaaS has been in a very tough 24-month cycle. I think we've experienced as a whole, not just Meal Ticket, but I think SaaS companies in general have experienced a bit of a recession. I think budgets have tightened from our buyers, whether they're restaurants, distributors, or even outside of this vertical. And I don't think that most people, when they're looking at the macro economy, realize that even though this is obviously a tiny piece of the economy, but like from a technology standpoint, a lot of us are employed in this vertical. So I believe that feels like it's coming back now. I think budgets are loosening up a bit. Everybody's been through their tightening cycle, and now 25 looks to be a little bit more promising. I think more specifically when you look at restaurant tech and food tech, like restaurants are having a tough year, and I think there's more closings than openings this year. I think we're projected to have more closings and openings next year as well. And you just think about the impact to spending in this vertical that's going to have. I mean, it's it's going to be holistic, right? I mean, everybody that sells into this, whether it's food producers or software providers or the service providers, we're going to feel it. To me, that speaks to the need to be even more conscious of providing value and ROI in what we sell. And we have seen in past cycles where that value prop rings true when you're talking to a restaurant owner that needs to be efficient, to save money, but also not not cut things that are helping them run their business efficiently, right? So when we think about that, it's all about the value prop of the product, right? We have to make sure that what we're providing isn't just a nice to have, and that it actually is saving them money and helping them stay in business and run their business effectively and efficiently. And I think if you're not in that position, it's going to be really hard over the next 18 months.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful. And it's something that we've seen across all the hospitality verticals as a whole. And I think as we go through these different cycles, a restaurant or a hotel are using anywhere from 5 to 10 different technologies to run their business, sometimes even more, which is great. But at the same point, going through, and when you have tighter budgets, it's what is necessary versus what is accessory. So making sure that you have the right technology, the right things, whether that's automation, whether that's the right POS, the right inventory, the right things, and that they have the right integrations to really do the things you need to do. So you're not having all these different things. So we were building on top of each other. It's like, how do we make it 1% better each technology? And that's kind of removed itself from the industry, and looking at more holistic service providers and holistic technology that's going to give you good insights and the things that you need to do your job well, versus just maybe do the job a little better. So I think that's really impactful. And it's going to be interesting in 25 to see how things continue to evolve and how technology continues to evolve and play a role in this space, while also still keeping the human element of going into a restaurant, sitting down, enjoying a meal, and having a great experience with, your server, the cook, the bartender, whoever you're interacting with along that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's why the role of AI is such an important conversation right now. And I think you look at the many ways in which we think AI is going to have an impact on every industry, and I think this industry specifically is going to be very sensitive to how that's used. I don't think anybody wants to sit at a bar and be served by a robot yet. I don't think we're there. But to the extent that you can use AI in the software that powers your humans, I think there's a lot of desire for that. I think it makes your humans more efficient, takes some of that rote, boring work off the table for them, and allows them to do best what they do, which is interact with people.
Absolutely. And I think there's so many companies, now that you brought this up, there's so many companies talking about AI and it's being used as a buzzword. Everybody's doing stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't really doing anything with AI. It's a chatbot, it's this or that. But utilizing AI the right way is going to be impactful and going to be a real challenge, and something that's going to be interesting to see how that plays into effect. And obviously, you don't have to share too much, but are you guys looking at AI? Is there some things that you're looking at hopefully releasing from an AI perspective across MarketMan or Meal Ticket and the Umbrella portfolio?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to say in a cheeky way that we've been using AI since AI was cool. Really, like in our data management, we've been using some machine learning in the deduping, massaging, general digestion of data for 5 or 6 years now. And that's not, that wasn't using an LLM necessarily, but it was definitely using kind of the best in class ML practices at that time. So we think about AI now in two different ways, really. It's like, how do we use it in our operations to be more efficient? And then how do we use it in our product, right? To create efficiency for our customers. I think it's easier to use AI in our operations because there are so many tools out there. The hard part about that is picking which tools are actually value add for their cost, because the cost is pretty high right now. I think Salesforce is launching, a dozen new AI products, and they're super expensive. And, we're evaluating a lot of them and trying to decide, which ones do we actually want to put to use here. But there's some really no-brainer use cases for AI when you're talking about operations. And we'll continue to explore those. And I'm sure that the products will continue to get better. When we think about implementing it into our products, it's like with the amount of data that we have, it's just, it's such a good use case for AI. So managing data, discerning data, finding, uncovering insights in data is a great AI use case. The use cases that we shy away from are anytime AI has to make a calculation or, make a very specific recommendation. Like sometimes, the hallucinations are enough to turn off your user to not be able to want to use it again. But things like for us, we've soft launched a recipe building AI product within our MarketMan product that's in use now. It's in beta. It's not live. It's not fully live and rolled out yet, but we'll be announcing that soon. Like I said, we use AI on our data management for our meal ticket customers and for our data sharing programs. There's a dozen other use cases that we're evaluating now that we know will come into play over the next 12 to 18 months. And we believe firmly that AI is real, and that any company not using it in their product and their operations is going to be left behind in the next 24 months. So like we're bought in, and now it's just a matter of discerning what's going to be useful and what's fluff.
Yeah, we're in a similar boat with all the amount of data that we process on a regular basis, and how do we leverage it? How do we leverage AI and ML the right way to continue to improve efficiency without, causing chaos, right?
Yeah.
And what's the right tools and what's the right use cases for it? So it's cool to see that others in the industry, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it's going to be really interesting to see how different companies leverage it and who's actually going to be leveraging it for the right kind of use cases in the right way that actually is really impactful versus who's leveraging it to look cool. And I think that the cream is going to rise to the top, I think, in 2025 as AI continues to establish itself and we understand what those use cases are. So it's going to be an very interesting year around product development, I think, next year for a lot of companies. So it's going to be cool to see what y'all are doing and building out with that.
Definitely.
As we kind of close out here, I always liked, having you being a part of the founding team and then growing into the CEO. What advice do you have for, future entrepreneurs or those that are looking, listening out here that are a part of this industry, but are looking at potentially becoming an entrepreneur, whether it's in this industry or industry adjacent? What are some of those key lessons or key learnings from you as a founding team to CEO would share for those out there listening?
I used to take a lot of meetings with starting, early entrepreneurs, and would ask the similar question. And one of the first things I say is don't underestimate how hard it is. Doing a pure startup is really, really hard. There's a lot of serendipity that comes into play to your success. And for us, we got really lucky a few times being in the right place at the right time, and it worked out, and it kind of moved us forward on the right trajectory. And it's why I spent so much time on the road and in person with people, is because you have to put yourself in those positions to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think like in general, you can't underestimate the amount of work and that goes in and the amount of serendipity that is responsible for success. I don't think I'm particularly special that way, that I just was willing to work really hard and got lucky. I think on the plus side, having the ability to have a say in my own future and to build a company that I wanted to build has been a tremendous experience and an amazing learning. And it has changed so much along the way. Like running a company of 200 people is way, way, way different than running a company of 4 people. But so is 20 and 50 and 75 and 100. Like every step change represents a dramatic change in what the business looks like and what it's like to run that company. And so I wasn't expecting that, right? I wasn't expecting how different and challenging it would be to run a company of this size versus when we first, paired up with private equity. We were only 25 people, and like that change from there forward has been dramatic and again, like really interesting and different. And then I think the last thing is and this is the advice I give to all early stage entrepreneurs, is like just be careful about taking on financing. I mean, you're married to your investors, and whether it's seed investors or angel or private equity or VC or whatever, like know what you're giving up by raising money, right? And make sure you're ready to do that when you do it, and make sure you understand the long-term implications of raising money in a certain valuation early on and what that means for your likely ownership 10 years from now. Because I don't think anybody does the math for you that early to show you like what happens to your ownership after you raise, a few $1,000,000 down the road. And it's like, it's very tactical to say, but like you do a lot of work, and I've seen people make really big mistakes with their cap table early on that just kill them later on. So I mean, I've absolutely loved the journey. I really love the people I work with, and I think that's the other thing about being in my position is that I have the ability to choose the people I work with and to really love my team. And not everybody gets to do that, so I feel extremely fortunate for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool takeaways there. I mean, one, I love that we bring about luck, right? Serendipitous of luck. And I think, there's the old saying, luck is when opportunity meets, preparation. We all need a little luck in life. And sometimes it's about right time, right place. And, the Omnibus story is definitely one of those as well, because our founder started in a completely different industry, was at a golf course, and fell into hospitality industry. He started an e-commerce company and just fell into this because of somebody that he met on a golf course. And that's serendipitous. That's a little bit of luck, right? But that's part of entrepreneurship. And so I think that's a really cool one. And then, the thing you talk about taking on financing, there's a lot of chatter going on about that in the hospitality space right now, those that are venture backed or funded versus bootstrapped and all that. And I think all of it's successful, right? If you're going to grow a company and scale it, there's success in that. And that's a challenge itself. But I love that you share that kind of insight of understand what that means, because it's really easy to get lost in the here and now and not the full picture. So those are really great takeaways, and appreciate you sharing those insights. And it's been a lot of fun to get to talk with you and see how your journey's progressed, and hopefully continuing to see what Meal Ticket and then our relationship with MarketMan continues to be, especially the team that we've worked with, Connor and Blakesley and Aaron, and all of them has been just amazing. It's been a lot of fun to work with them. Awesome. Connor and I've had a few pints at trade shows together, so it's been great to get to meet the team. So I do think you've got a great team on your hands, and definitely wanted to highlight them as it's been a fun partnership to build in the last 3 to 4 months as we've gotten started, and looking forward to what we can do in 2025. So Wink, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing these insights and sitting down having a chat with us. How can our listeners find you, learn more, get involved if they want to connect more with you or Meal Ticket?
Mealticket.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really post on Twitter or the other things very often. So I'm definitely, you can reach me on LinkedIn or at Meal Ticket easily. Please reach out. I'd love to talk to people about the business.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to link your LinkedIn profile as well as the website in the show notes. So all you got to do is click on those show notes. You'll have the link right there to get in touch. Wink, appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks, Rob.
And we'll definitely be in touch soon. And for those out there listening, as always, thank you so much for being a listener of the Hospitable podcast. Make sure you be a tier 1. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, do all those things to help the show out. And if there's guests that want to come on, or there's guests that you would like to see, or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. And until next episode, be well.